of a sudden they're like, oh, we're on board with Trump. Great. Okay. Oh, and by the way, now you have to give us everything we want or you're a racist piece of shit. Basically, I didn't see exactly how it started, but there was a conversation about H-1B visas that was occurring. It started with the announcement. I'm going to be shitty. I'll admit, I haven't been following much of X over the holidays. I sort of put my phone away and was just enjoying time with my family, and I think my posting will show that. I didn't post much. But there was a guy appointed from Trump who happens to be of Indian descent to be sort of on the task force for heading AI policy. And so, yeah, there were some people, and then there's no doubt there's some of this that's racism. There were some people like, we don't like this guy, you know, because he's Indian. But a lot of it, I think, had to do with, like, this idea of there is a promotion of foreign workers over domestic workers. And with the Democrats, that showed its face in illegals. And the smugness of which, these illegals, they commit less crime than Americans, and they're harder working than Americans, and they're willing to do jobs, blah, blah, blah. And how off-putting that was to so many people that are Americans. Well, now it seems that there are certain people that are replacing that rhetoric. Just take out illegals and low-skilled labor and put in high-skilled labor and legal. So through the H-1B system. Well, we need these high-skilled immigrants because Americans, their culture is shitty. They're not educated enough. They can't do the work. There's not enough of them. So we need these people from outside the country to come in and save us, you know, etc. And that rankles a lot of people. And there are arguments on both sides of this issue. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on H-1Bs. I'm not. And sort of Elon and Vivek weighed in on this, and it was in the context of talking about massively expanding H-1B visas. For those that don't know, H-1B visas are a specific type of visa that allows people to come legally for, I don't know the system all that well, but it has to do with an employer in the United States has to request that they have a specific job slot that they were unable. They first have to look for Americans to do it. Then when they're incapable of doing that, they file this visa and then can import people of the skilled labor that they specifically need from overseas. The problem with it is the system is allegedly, and I believe this, massively abused. And so that's sort of the debate that's been going on. And Elon has said some of the shittiest things as far as I'm concerned. He reposted a post of someone putting a Hydra up, you know, a dragon with a bunch of heads, and it said, there's a man with a shield fighting the Hydra, and it says individualism. And then the Hydra's head says, like, communism, racism, collectivism, nationalism. Really? Nationalism's akin to racism and communism? Really, Elon? That's interesting. So my love and prioritization of the United States of America and wanting policies from our government that focus first and foremost on the people of America and the country of America is the same as me being a communist? Or being a racist? Really? It makes you wonder if that's what Elon truly did. Maybe he's just not thinking it through and he's just rapidly posting stuff, etc., etc. But if that's what Elon truly believes, and it certainly seems that there are people in positions of strength in the tech sector that are sort of saying, Elon's explaining it like it's a team sport. He's like, well, it's like the Yankees. You want to win, right? Well, then you bring in some people from the Dominican. Who cares? You're winning. But our country's not a team sport. It's not a sport. It's more akin to a family than a sport. I have a brother, right? I have several brothers. They're not wealthy. They're not the strongest people in the world. They're not the smartest people in the world. Neither am I. Should I replace them? I want a new brother. Let me bring in a brother from overseas. Sorry, you guys are out. I want to win. I want my family to win. Well, what's family then? What's the connection to family? I'll replace my two brothers, and then the two new guys that come in that are smarter than them and smarter than me say, now you're the weak link. We're going to replace you. See ya. So I'm out too? Then what's the family? Now it's just three unconnected people that are doing well, working together, okay? The idea that it's just, like, it goes back to this idea that the only thing that matters in this country is GDP. Culture doesn't matter. Beliefs don't matter. Connection to the country doesn't matter. Now, let me be clear. There are certainly people that are racist. There are certainly people that I don't like Indians, and I'm going to make racial jokes, and I'm going to tell you how much I don't like them. Okay, that's true. There's certainly people, and you can see from posts on X, that are of Indian descent that are racist against white people and against native-born Americans. Okay. I'm not really dealing with those groups at this point. I'm talking about the people with legitimate concerns that we've had a system that has screwed over our education system. We've had people such as those in the tech industry that have intentionally went out of their way to make sure they're not hiring native-born Americans, particularly white men, through DEI initiatives. And it seems to me very similar to arguments I see that justified illegal immigration. That these people would justify all of these shitty policies. For example, you'd have these reliable Democrat voters that reliably vote for the very institutions like the CIA, etc., that interfere in other countries, right? How many times have you heard this? Well, because of the CIA's drug war, we had all this trouble in like South America and blah, blah, blah. So we ruined their countries. So now we have to accept the refugees. So the Democrat voter who wants those refugees in the first place votes for the party that backs groups like the CIA. And then when the CIA causes damage, they say, see, now you have to do what we said in the first place. Same with these tech bros. Up until the 2024 election, tech billionaires, etc., which direction did they go? Were they fighting for free speech? Or were they capitulating? When you go to social media, was YouTube, was Twitch, was Facebook, was Instagram, was Twitter, were they pushing for free speech? Or were they giving in, censoring people that said things like me? That said things that were defending the Republican Party or populist movement? Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're on board with Trump. Great. Okay. Oh, and by the way, now you have to give us everything we want or you're a racist piece of shit. I'm sorry. You were a huge contributor of the problem. The truth is, many of these tech companies, it's certainly true. Two things can be true simultaneously. There probably are positions that they were unable to find Americans for. A lot of that has to do with the intentional dumbing down of our American education system. But even still, you say, well, what's that the fault of the tech bro? You need someone to fill the job. So what are you supposed to do? You can't fix the education system yourself. So you're Elon working at SpaceX and you're like, we're going to bring people in from India. Okay, fine. But where these tech people are to blame is many of these tech companies knew that there was a grift going on and they accepted it because they wanted cheaper labor. And from my limited reading of this, it's not just the fact that people from India on H-1Bs are willing to work cheaper. That's not even the crucial point. The crucial point is they're basically indentured servants. Because if you come through on an H-1B visa and you get a job at, we'll say, Microsoft, and Microsoft says, we'll pay you $100,000 a year to come in and do this job. And let's say Microsoft's real. They looked for an American and they couldn't find one, right? And they bring this person in from India. If that person from India says, you know what, I don't like this job anymore. I feel like I'm being mistreated. I feel like I'm worth more money than this. You know what happens to them? They lose their visa. So they're stuck. Imagine you, we'll presume an American or wherever country you're from, and you go to work, and there's three companies. Like I do home health care with adults with autism and other disabilities. Imagine that the contract I signed with my company said, oh, and by the way, you're never allowed to work for any other company that does this, ever. And I signed that contract. And then I go into my company for 4 years. It's like, yeah, we're not going to give you a raise. And I'm like, well, this sucks, man. I go down the street to this other company. They'll pay me $5 an hour more. They say, no, you can't. You're legally not allowed to do that. What do you think the chances are of my current company giving me a raise? What do you think the chances are of them treating me better? Like none. They're going to be like, we're the only game in town, baby. And that's what you want if you're a massive multinational tech corporation. Good. You don't have to worry about training people and then them going elsewhere. They're locked in, baby. And then the other part of the argument is, and I disagree with Elon and Vivek in this, they could say what they want, and I understand. Like, everybody knows that this conversation over Christmas is happening in the context of H-1B visas. Everybody understands it. Now, Elon and Vivek and all of their supporters, which I find myself to be a supporter of much of what they do, but nonetheless, the people that are supporting them in this specific argument, they can pretend all they want. That's all they're saying. They're just saying, Vivek's just saying there's a problem with American culture. That's it. And we're supposed to not connect the dots that they're literally talking about expanding H-1B. No, they're just saying there's a problem with American culture and education. That's not what's going on. They're making it in this context of if A, then B, if B, then C. And they're saying, well, there's a problem with American culture. And you're like, okay. And they're like, therefore, mass import H-1Bs. And one of the things they're doing is they keep shifting the argument. So everybody knows we're talking about H-1Bs. And then they'll say things like this. Well, but you don't want to joke it? You don't want the most impressive athletes from all over the world for your team? If the smartest man in the world who's the best engineer in the world says, my God, I really want to be an American and come from, you don't want that guy? We already have visas for that. They're called O-1 visas, which there's not a cap on. For people of extraordinary skill that are like the top 1% of their industry, we have that. That's not what H-1B is. And all these people say, no, the H-1B is just literally to fill jobs that there aren't Americans to do. But then I saw people all yesterday on X going through and looking at specific H-1Bs. Entry-level accountants. Really? There's no entry-level accountants in the United States? The truth is it's all of these entry-level positions that are coming through on H-1Bs as well. If you were like, yeah, the top 1,000 scientists in the world want to come here, I think that's a sell that you could make, right? But when it's like, well, we already are taking hundreds of thousands a year and we should up that to like 1 million a year because it's jobs that Americans are incapable to do. And you're like, what are these jobs? And it's like, you know, like entry-level coding, entry-level accounting. Really? Those are the jobs? And then when you push back on that, what's Elon and them saying? But we want the best people. Yeah, no shit. If you're talking about the 100 or 1,000 top scientists, fine, great. But that's not what we're talking about. When you hear people at Disney that had to train the people that then replaced their jobs, those people they were training weren't Albert Einstein. So we have a system that used DEI, denigrated people, showed people for years that both at the education levels with DEI, denigrating people that they considered oppressors like white males, then at the hiring level where they intentionally prioritize not hiring people like white males. So people made the decision, I'm not going to go to school for that sort of shit. Then they say, oh, look, white people, Americans, etc., they're not willing to go get trained for this sort of shit. So now we need to import people from other countries. Oh, and much of them are going to have strong feelings on what they think about the United States culture, and they don't necessarily agree with it. Now, here's the problem. I think both sides have a point. So if you look at this just from a philosophical principle, I already did the one end of it, like the family situation. For example, let's say that you took of the rest of the world, what is there, 6 billion people? And let's say you literally could take the top 300 million people, bring them to the United States and completely kick every United States person that lives in the United States now out. Would you do it? Arguably, in almost every field, the United States would have people that are better at. Oh, yeah, there's really good engineers in the United States, but if we exclude them and take the top 100,000 engineers from around the world, on net, that would be better than the engineers we have here. Because even though there might be some of the United States engineers that are amongst the top, as a whole, just because you're looking at a population of 6 billion people versus a population of 350 million, but then what is the country at that point? So philosophically, you'd say there's something more to it than that. What is being an American? And it's interesting. There used to be, I remember I was very interested in this debate that I saw occur in the UK. We see how far the UK's gone. And I remember watching all these like Question Time and all these shows where they'd have politicians in the UK because I'm a nerd and I like that stuff. And they would always have this topic. What does it mean to be British? Go ahead, define it. What's it mean to be American? It's not so easy. Is it just a person that's born in America? I guess that's one definition. But I tend to believe that there's a level of legal immigration that's justified. I know people that are legal immigrants that love this country and understand the history of it more than me. I don't know if they love it more than me, but they could run circles around me talking about the history of like different presidents and actions they took and stuff like that. They're hardworking. They value things like our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. Are they not American? I don't know. But surely it can't just be anyone that sets foot in the country. Because then what's being American? The truth is, to have a country, you need to have something that binds you. And if it's not an ethnicity, which that's fine, I don't think it has to be. But you could say, well, what makes an Irishman? Being Irish. What makes a Zimbabwean? That's not the game we play here. And one of the things that the white nationalists, etc., the ethno-nationalists, I don't agree with their solutions. I don't. But they're correct about this. Why is it that it seems to be these countries of European descent that are told they can't have a country for themselves? That's fine. I'm not saying the United States should just be a country of people of European descent. But it is true. That's the only country that we have, the only countries that we have this conversation about where it's like, oh, well, you have to open it up to everyone of all varying beliefs. We don't say that shit about other countries. Why is that? So then what is it to be an American? If we bring in 300 million people next year and say, okay, they're all legal, and all of them happen to be fans of Sharia law, are they American? Legally, yeah. So then the question is, what should our government be prioritizing? Now, there are people that I respect that were sort of open borders people, like Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman was like, if you're willing to come here and you're willing to sort of fit in with the culture and you're willing to work hard, we'll take you. We don't give a shit. Anyone who wants to come. Barring, I would assume he would say, any insane criminal activity, etc. But he said, then no welfare. Not only no welfare for the immigrants, but no welfare for the people here. And so it's literally just a country of may the best man win. You're a welder. You're doing your job for $25 an hour. Your company only needs one welder. Guy comes in from South Africa, says, hey, I'm a welder. I'm willing to do that job for $15 an hour. See ya. You're gone. You either have to increase your skills and make yourself more valuable to the company, or take less money, or go work for another company, etc. But we clearly don't have that system, and I don't think that system's workable anyways. To me, the only measuring stick for the country shouldn't be how much money can we make. There are things to say about culture. There are things to say about wanting people that have a cohesive background. There's a reason that the globalists want to erode national identity. This is the world they want. They want a world where everybody's just interchangeable. Being an American means nothing. Who cares? That just happens to be. It's like saying I'm a Chicagoan. So what? Move to Detroit. Who gives a shit? Same difference. Then you move to London. Okay, who cares? No one has a connection to the area they live in. No one has sort of a cohesive background to make everyone in the area all want to push forward for the same team. You don't care. So what is it that what are we saying? From the perspective of someone like Elon Musk, who owns these big companies, he looks at his company like he's like, how do I maximize my company? I want the best 10,000 people working at my company. He might say to the guy that's 9,999th or the guy that's the 10,000, right? At the bottom of the scale, hey, here comes another guy that can do your job better than you. See ya. And he don't think twice about it. Sorry, but my kids, I won't be able to afford Christmas presents. Tough shit. See ya. I'm all about maximizing my company. And he might say, that's how we should run the country. Sorry, see ya. And if that means, well, there are other costs, there aren't financial costs or skill costs, but there are other costs, like social cohesion. Who gives a shit? He's not paying that cost.